Welcome to another edition of Bunker Office Hours, a weekly live show brought to you by the team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to helping our community start and grow their own businesses. I'm your host, the one and only Iron Mike Stedman, dialing in from the Brick City, Newark, New Jersey, joined by my co-host, Amy Morrison, and our guest today, Mr. Dave Berlin from out in Las Vegas, Nevada. What's going on, y'all?
What's up, man? How are you?
Living the dream.
I love it. Where is it? Is it less than 100 degrees there? Because I think we already hit 100 this morning.
It is definitely less than 100 degrees. I'm all energized, y'all, because I got the what's that size at Starbucks? The tall one, right? Got my little venti. Got my little got my little cold brew, cocoa foam. So good. And I'm excited to have Dave on because Dave, I think me and you've interacted maybe once or twice in person, but I feel like in this ecosystem, you just kind of get to know of each other anyway. Between the content, I follow the content and stuff that you're posting, and so it's good to get on here and chop it up and talk about building brand awareness through social media. And I told Dave right before we went live, I'm a little bit of a contrarian around social, but this ain't the Iron Mike show. This is the Dave show. And I'm excited to dive into it and go learn from you, and also provide some value to our audience. So how does that sound, Dave?
Sounds great, man. Let's go.
So first thing we got to do is we got to talk about announcements taking place in the bunker. Good morning, all of y'all. Chat's buzzing on LinkedIn. I see y'all. But Amy, what's going on in the bunker?
Okay, let's see. This week we've got check out the events happening in your area. What's happening? Go to Bunker Lab or community and find a city near you is not happening. That first, and then that veterans applications open up September 1st. So if you want to read more about the program before apps open, that's bunk/VIR. And then also Breaking Barriers Entrepreneurship Workshop is currently accepting applications for the October cohort. So that again is Bunker Labs /breaking-barriers. And if you don't know our email or not our email address, but if you don't know our website address by now, like I don't know what you're listening to. And then finally, we have a new blog article up, a veteran entrepreneur spotlight on Melanie McLean Brooks, co-founder of Flying Giant Productions based in Denver. She's a veteran and residence alumni that went from making small YouTube videos to producing major documentary series for Amazon, Lonely Planet, Adidas, Vox, and CNN. So that is on the blog. So that's what's going on this week.
Shout out to our boy Keith, rocking the Bunker Labs blog. Make sure y'all check that out. It's got a lot of great content on there. And before we chop it up with Dave, I need everyone on this stream to do me a favor. Go ahead and pull out your phone and hit that subscribe button to the Transition Podcast, whether on iTunes, Spotify. Got some fire episodes. We have a fire back catalog, just being frank. And then we've got some amazing interviews and stuff coming up that I'm going to talk about at the end of the show. So if you could do me a favor right now, go ahead and pull out your phone, hit that subscribe button on Transition, and then let me know when you do in the chat by just hitting K. All right, Dave, the man, the myth, the legend. Welcome to Office Hours. Can't say welcome to the bunker because you're a Bunker Labs OG. I feel like me and you entered the ecosystem around the same time. But for our viewers that are tuning in, I would love for you to start by just introducing yourself to everyone and set the stage for our combo today on social media.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks, man. Dave Berlin out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I got introduced to Bunker Labs back in 2016. Actually, when somebody was touring with, and that's where I got exposed to Bunker Labs. And then when I moved to Vegas, I met Mario in just the first couple of months that I lived here, and he was interested in standing up a chapter. So we've been holding it down out here in Las Vegas as a cohort since 2019. It's been really to see us transition through pandemic and all that stuff. And along the way, I've had a lot of fun telling some great stories on social media and helping people stand out where they need to and step back where they should. And it's been a lot of fun.
So as someone who's entered the ecosystem in 2016, what's keeping you around? Like, why are you still spending this time, volunteering and helping the next great generation of veteran entrepreneurs and military spouses?
Man, for me, it's just that's the passion, right? I got out of the Marine Corps in 2003, and for the first 7 years, I've always been dedicated to helping people uh, enhance the human experience of wherever they're at. I was a drill instructor for at-risk youth for 7 years after I got out of the military. It was like a quasi-military at-risk youth, like boot camp type of thing, working 2 weeks. And it was just helping them get where they were going, right? In that chapter of their life. And then whenever I got exposed to entrepreneurship, I really believed that that was the critical thing for veterans in transition was it was our responsibility to defend the country. Now it's our build it. And the only way that I've seen that be something that I get excited about every day is through entrepreneurship. So I remember when I first got exposed to Bunker Labs, I was like, how is this not everywhere? So honestly, I'll stay until they kick me out or until we get a chapter in Tulsa, and then I'll feel like I complete.
What was your MOS in the Marine Corps?
0311.
Hooray!
Yeah.
Fellow grunt.
I didn't know anything better.
Yeah. Hey, check this out. Not only are you and I both grunts, but we both worked with at-risk youth because when I got out, I lived in a residence hall with 70 teenage boys, all young men of color, in the heart of Newark. So it's interesting that we both kind of had that same journey, and we made our way to the bunker. And I think it speaks to the power of community because when you're transitioning out, you be able to have a tribe, that you can fall in on. Right. Because a lot of people, we get spread out in the wild. You got people in North Dakota. First of all, Las Vegas is far as hell. I'm just be honest. Like Las Vegas is out there. But the fact that we can still get reconnected is super dope. And one of the things we're talking about today is how to leverage social media to build your brand awareness. So I'm interested to hear your perspective, and I'm going to add my 2 cents. We're going to have a good conversation about it.
Yeah. So to me, I think the most important thing is a lot of people take the social side of it and they make it, it can get really cluttered there whenever you start adding the social element. I can argue both sides of that. There's two words, social media. And I always want, because I remember when I got my first social media account, it was MySpace. And shout out to Mark Fullerton because I always make MySpace jokes. But here's the important thing about all media. There's a responsibility there, and I caught it whenever I first had that first MySpace account, and then more importantly, the first Facebook account. There's a responsibility there that there's going to be a transaction record of everything that we say or do, and there's a responsibility that goes with that. But there's also a responsibility, and this goes to one of my core values. The only marketing that will actually work is the truth, and it's our responsibility to tell that truth in ways that people have never seen it before. So when it comes to that social aspect, there's a lot of people that can really make it very opinionated, and they'll lose friends and stuff like that, where to me it's just like I try to be very neutral. I try to be a very good media outlet, and I try to introduce the truth in ways that people aren't used to seeing it. So having a little bit of fun, but also being open and honest, transparent, and just getting real.
How do you advise a lot of the Bunker Labs veterans and residents? Everyone knows they need revenue, right? And they say, okay, we need social media, and people ask all the time about social media and stuff. So how are you advising them to think about building their brands through social?
Yeah, so this goes a lot with one of the other core topics that I love talking about, and that's networking. And just like in networking, I teach people your role or your title might change. So again, what you do on social media is going to echo in that sort of eternity for everything that they have record of. So for me, it's just coming up with 3 things that you are absolutely passionate about that may not be affected if your title or your opportunity changes. So those are the things that you can always be consistent on. For me, despite the role, like right now, I have 4 different hats that I wear. Some revenue building, some not. The thing that's consistent across all those things for me, I do rule of 3s, right? So it's books, business, and boom boxes. I mean, I know it's a little weird, but it's that weird little thing that helps me stand out above all the noise.
No, as a brand guy, I dial it into, what do you want to be known for? And like you said, you want to be known for as an educated entrepreneur that's sharing content and resources. And being a DJ is a part of your identity, just like boxing is a part of my identity. So that's why you always see me throwing boxing videos or making Muhammad Ali references and stuff. And, for me, one of the reasons that sometimes I get, how do I say this, become a contrarian around social is because you and I both know, right? Everyone's like, all right, I got this great business idea, or I'm going to start this social media account, and then they start posting on social. And I'm like, yo, go get clients, go sell. They're like, no, I didn't make this TikTok video. I'm like, no, you need to go out and like actually talk to people. And I think the challenge in this day and age is the assumption or the feeling of progress. Like it feels good, right? Like making that TikTok video or posting on LinkedIn, it makes us feel like we're really moving in our brands. But like the hard work is still a lot of behind the scenes stuff, which is building your business, setting your left and right lateral limits, checking your finances, your bank accounts, like all this other stuff. And sometimes I think people are over indexing on the social and not focusing on actually building a sustainable business.
Yeah, I agree, and this is one of those challenging things because I've done this before, a room full of 100 people, different education backgrounds, all that stuff. Hey, what is marketing? If you had one word to use, like to describe what marketing is for you, you'll hear Facebook, Instagram, ads, and that's actually just one traction channel. I know I've got some book recommendations later, but I read and practice a lot of books. There's actually 2 books called Traction, not talking about the Gino Wickman one. I'm actually talking about the Gabriel Weinberg one.
Yep.
They explore 19 different traction channels, and social media is just one of them, right? Billboards is one. I know a lot of people don't use billboards. Billboards are huge in this town. So there's just a lot of like events, live events, offline events. There's all these other traction channels. What most people skip is that social media is never the business. It should be the vessel that takes people to a product or service. So if you don't have a product or service and you don't have a way to take people's money, and then I know taxes have something to do with it. Like everyone keeps telling me you should pay your taxes. I promise I will. But like that's your basic funnel. So if you have a product and service that people can pay you for and you can pay your taxes, like social is just the way to get more people to that. And a lot of times people that do look at social media as their first responsibility, they don't even have a product or service yet.
I got to give a shout out to all the Marines dialing in. I'm hearing, infantry is the only MOS. You know what I mean? I'm seeing people, hoorah. What's going on, y'all? We appreciate you tuning in. Enrique, what's up, family? Who else we got? I got my Monica. Monica, what's up, Monica? Great to see you as always. Brian, we appreciate you.
Hey, since we got so many Marines, I do have a quick joke for Marines. What's green and tastes like red crayons? Green crayons.
Noted. But yeah, so on social, one thing I think about too is I think it's a great nurturing and community building. So that's how a lot of us stay connected, to be honest, is through LinkedIn and other social media channels, right? So it's like I feel like LinkedIn is like my network. It's like a community. People follow each other. They can be on the lookout, especially when the pandemic hit. Really supporting a lot of the work I was doing with Ironbound. And as you know, I crowdfunded my first book through social, just getting it out there. But there was still the DMing people, sending emails, referencing it. But I think sometimes when I'm seeing a lot of early stage founders use social, all they're doing is just trying to like promote. Yeah. It's like, where's the value? Where's the relationship building? It's like, I feel like there's a better way to use the platform than simply just trying to be cheesy. And a lot of the salespeople that sell insurance, and it's like, I'm just like, okay, that's a terrible post.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You see that happen a lot, right? I use the example of real estate people. I've seen it happen so many times where real estate people go, today we're going to mix it up and I'm going to take you to my favorite coffee shop and show you this amazing place. And by the end of the post, they sound like all of the side effects for like a new medicine out there. Like, it's like, by the way, if you're trying to buy or sell a house, remember, I'm a real estate agent. Don't forget to call me when you're trying to buy or sell your house. And it's like, we get it. Just like bring the value, and people are going to like you, and they'll tell people about you if you don't try to sell them right there, Dean.
We got a lot of people in the chat right now. I'm checking the screen as well. For those that are tuning in, if you have a question with regards to your social media strategy or any specific frustrations that you're dealing with as you're trying to leverage the platform, go ahead and drop it in the chat, because you got a master on right now. And we can get a deep dive into it. And one of the things, so I already see something about business page, right? You remember, Dave, back in like 2012, 2011, if you had a Facebook business page, it just had like maximum reach, versus now you're seeing a lot of these pages, like the organic reaches ain't there, especially on like LinkedIn Business. So when people are getting there ready to set up their profiles and accounts, are you advising them to think through their personal page, or what is your advice around that?
So to me, it's always going to be, it's always based off of what is the core product or service. For some people, I'm going to say keep it personal and let the business happen a little bit more organically. For some people, I'm going to say make it business. Here's where I'm fascinated by all marketing, but my favorite marketing to really help people elevate their brand is event-based marketing, right? So that's where I really get into the trenches, and I say hosting events is easy. It's just the 875-point checklist, right? So for people that are, if hosting events is going to be anywhere in their prescription, right? I'm going to encourage them to get a business page, because there's things that happen from a business page that you can't do from a personal page. Something so simple like Eventbrite. I see so many people all the time, they'll put in a Facebook event page, throw it up, and they'll be like, all right, we're just going to sit back and wait for people to sign up. And it's like, if that's your post and pray, at least have an Eventbrite page, because you can tie those two together, and they're shopping in two different buckets, and all the analytics and all the data goes to the same place. So in some cases, a business page is important. But again, it really just depends on the business. Because sometimes if people do a business page, then it's going to immediately turn people off as soon as they get subscribed to that.
And I listened to a great podcast yesterday, and it talked about hygiene, right? So a lot of business pages, sometimes it's just about hygiene. Are you alive? Are you well? And so just kind of having that landing page up there and updating it every now and then, so people know that, like, hey, you're not dead, you're still active and stuff, etc. My man Mike wants to know, when developing a new business, is having a unified marketing strategy across platforms with common messaging, or should you have something a bit more fragmented? I have advice. I'm curious to hear yours first.
For me, I think it depends. Again, it always goes back to the business. I think there's some different segments or different social platforms that the conversation needs to be a little different, but there does need to be consistency across all the brand. Like number one is the name, right? Is the name consistent across everything? Sometimes that's a little harder to get, and people have to change things up. But as long as you have that, stuff like your mission and colors and that whole type of thing, as long as that feels the same, the message and the conversation can be different, but it needs to be based on what your audience on those are. And sometimes you have to develop that over time.
One of the things I tell people is really hone in on who your perfect customer is, right? And where they're spending their time, because a lot of business executives and stuff, right? When they're on LinkedIn now, they're on there with like family photos and food and stuff. They're not really trying to do business. So if you're on there trying to sell them like you do on LinkedIn or something, you're going to fail, right? And, Facebook is a Wild West, so just stay out of it. like just don't go over to Facebook. But seriously, I think when people are starting, just like you said in Gabriel Weinberg's book, Traction, you want to test, right? So Jim Collins calls it fire bullets, then cannonballs. So maybe you say, hey, I'm going to do a quick 3-month test. I'm going to try 2 or 3 platforms. After that, I'm going to see where I'm getting the most engagement, where I'm getting the most revenue from based off my audience. And then I'm going to hone in and focus on that single platform. Like for me, when I started Ironbound Boxing, I was on every platform. Then I started just posting on LinkedIn and my newsletter, and it was off to the races. And I realized a lot of the stuff that I was doing wasn't actually beneficial. So we keep our Instagram going more for hygiene purposes and people feel engaged. But the brunt of our revenue and donations come through our newsletter, one-on-one reach out, and then obviously keeping people updated on LinkedIn. So long story short, Mike, test, then really hone in and get good at your primary channel. So, in military, we got main effort and supporting effort. So like, what's your main effort? And then maybe have one or two supporting efforts.
And see, that's been the biggest challenge for me, because right now, I mean, I have 4 that I'm wearing, and 2 of those hats don't pay me money, but they're still a big part of my brand. So for any friends out there that have been following me for some time, my conversation has almost been dormant, because I've slowly been calculating and trying to understand what is the best way to review sort of the things that I'm working on right now, and still do the network justice and still provide value. So that's actually been the biggest challenge for me in the last 5 months, as we prepare for things like the Military Influencer Conference and all that stuff. I am still a DJ. So a lot of times when people are tagging me, I'm doing a lot of stuff here in the community, but like a lot of times people are tagging me, I'm like, hey, tag the DJ business too. Like, it's not just me, because there's brands behind that and teams behind all that stuff that I have to support.
Well, that's why I think it's so important to get clear about what do you want to be known for, and have that as like the main effort, and everything else is a support effort. And what I had to learn as a nonprofit, CEO, was that I can be more radically generous with my time, right? As well as my impact, when I have better margin in my for-profit business, right?
Yeah.
So leading with a lot of my for-profit stuff has given me the space and the time to grow my nonprofit, right? So I had to put my for-profit as my personal main effort, right? But that's allowed me to move Ironbound in a way that I wasn't when I had it the other way around, because I was just penny pinching. It was just a hustle. So I advise everyone that's tuning in, is like, triage it like primary. It's like, number one, what do you want to be known for? And then have those other support efforts in there as well. And I think it also goes to the fact of, like, for a lot of us as veterans and military spouses, it's like, how do we define ourselves these days, right? So back in the day, it was simple. I'm a Marine. Well, that can be infantry to the infantry guys and gals. We got to slide our specialty in there. But for the most part, it was simple. But now it's like, we're Renaissance people. We write, we DJ, we do all this other stuff. And it's like, how do we make time? And I think it goes back to, again, what do you want your network to know you for? So there's no one size fits all, but I do think there is power in leveraging social to build community and own your own narrative.
Well, I'll give you a perfect example, right? Because, and this very rarely happens, but there was a beautiful example that happened just last week. Somebody had connected me with someone here local to the community who had just been role. And that role is the director of global partnerships for the Vegas Golden Knights. How did that person get introduced to me? Not me going and knocking on their door. It was because of all the stuff I do in the veteran community. And that guy raised his hand and he said he wanted to be plugged in with more veterans, right? My name came up, and that's because of the brand that I've built. But at the end of that conversation that I had with him, he asked what I needed, and I said, it's important that you understand how I get paid. And I gave him each one of these hats that I don't get paid for, and then the one hat that I do get paid for is the DJ hat. And I said, I would love the opportunity to be able to DJ at the Golden Knights games. Like, that was a very specific ask, but it came back through how I make my money. And I don't really have that ask a lot, but that was a very specific ask that I wasn't afraid to ask for.
I got to answer a quick question from Joe, and then we got to go to books because Carrie's behind the scenes. You'll be cranking that whip pretty soon. Joe wants to know, how do you find the balance between bootstrapping a startup and paying a professional to do what we can't or shouldn't? Here's the thing I'll tell you. It's about identifying your zone of genius. What's the one thing that you can do that no one else can in your business? And where you're not focusing on that, you're slowing yourself down. So the thing is, like, the future we want for ourselves as entrepreneurs doesn't necessarily exist yet. We have to create it. You understand? And so sometimes that means you have to take a risk and bring another team member in to focus on this other stuff over here so you can be accelerated forward. And I was having this conversation with an entrepreneur the other day. You got to pay the man now for who you want to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And a lot of people aren't willing to pay the man. They're just willing to be stuck, right? And they're always, wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? But you have to force action on that. So in my case, I remember the first time I made a big hire was my virtual assistant, but doing that got me out the weeds of like filling out all kind of stuff and back end. Like, that's not my zone of genius. What I'm doing with Dave, this is my zone of genius. Creating content, writing, build relationships. If I'm not doing that, I'm slowing both my ventures down. So I hope that answered your question, Joe. All right, Dave, book recommendation, go.
Yeah, so I was just listening to, so when it comes to personal branding or any of that stuff, one of the most remarkable people that I've had the pleasure of not only meeting, but sharing a stage with before is a guy named Mike Kim. And the book is called You Are the Brand. Mike Kim is a phenomenal he started off as a copywriter, and then he ended up getting a lot more into the personal brand space, and he's built phenomenal mastermind groups and organizations. He's one of the only influencers out there that I've spent money. I've bought a lot of his courses. I read his book. I listen to his podcast every day, or every time there's a new one. Sometimes I re-listen to some of his podcasts, and that's probably the book when it comes to this topic that I would recommend. And then I've always got 4 or 5 different books that I'm reading for either personal and professional development as well.
Love it. We dropped the link to the book in the chat. My recommendation this week is actually not a book. It's a podcast, and it's not my podcast. It's someone else's. Earn Your Leisure podcast interview with Steve Harvey is probably one of the best podcast interviews I've ever heard. And that's saying a lot as someone who produces, hosts, and run an agency for podcasts. That podcast just hit different, and it hit so hard that I actually sent out a newsletter sharing it with the transition audience this week. The big takeaway for me during that interview was so many of us start at 0 and have to climb our way up. Imagine starting at negative 22 million and pulling yourself out of the hole. And so a lot of times you see these people in these successful roles, whether it's hosting America's Got Talent, Family Feud, or whatever he does, right? But this man lost it all twice and climbed himself out the hole to build his multi-million-dollar empire. And he tells a story, and it's a meal. It ain't a snack. There are a lot of snackable content, your little quick 15-minute TikTok videos. But those of you that are trying to learn and grow and push past this own limiting beliefs in your head and that self-doubt, and just trying to empower yourself to really manifest your dreams, I really want to encourage you to check out that podcast with Steve Harvey on the Earn Your Leisure. And again, if you sign up to the Transition newsletter, right, I'm starting to share content that complement a lot of the lessons that we talk about on this platform, as well as a transition as well. So we'll go ahead and drop a link to that in the chat. I'll go ahead and post it as well. Additionally, make sure y'all are tuned into the Transition podcast. That is your podcast. That is not ours. That is for you. We capture stories from entrepreneurs in the ecosystem that have been where you are and are at where you're trying to go. All right. So I want to encourage you to check it out. I'm going to release an episode tomorrow on flawless acceleration, which is going to talk about what you should really be focused on to get to those next levels. One of the things I talk about is having an operating system, because a business without an operating system is like a feral cat. It just comes in and out whenever it wants, it eats whatever, yada, yada, yada. All right. So we're going to talk about that on the show. A lot of great content coming your way. They're cracking the whip on me behind the scenes. I got to acknowledge our sponsors for today, MetLife Foundation. We appreciate MetLife for not only providing this platform as well as a transition platform for all of you out there. Lastly, make sure all of y'all are heading over to bunkerlabs.org. Sign up for the newsletter, get plugged into the ecosystem. We got programs that'll take you from idea to invoice, incubate you, and position you to grow alongside other founders and CEOs. If you're tuning in, go ahead, pull out your phone, hit that subscribe button on the Transition Podcast. After that, head over to bunkerlabs.org and let's keep building and let's keep growing. Dave, it was an honor to have you on today. Exciting stuff taking place in Vegas. We got the military influencer conference coming up in October. We'll both be out there. A lot of exciting opportunities for our ecosystem. Until next week, peace, love, and have a great rest of your week.